Hi, gang. Welcome to our Thursday live stream. It's not Tuesday like it normally is, but I was traveling on Tuesday, so we couldn't have it then, but we didn't want to miss a week because we think this is very important. So we are here, happy to be here Thursday night. Joining me tonight is our powerful and well-spoken producer who is going to be going through all of the questions with us tonight. That's Jill. Jill does all the producing on the channel, as most of you know, and she's the one that keeps me focused on the questions and keeps me from getting into too much detail, because I do have a tendency to speak a lot and go deep, and I'll get the gentle digital nudge when that happens. Before we begin, I want to just go through the standard disclaimer required by the state. Many of the questions we cover here are nuanced. We do our best to answer them, but our responses are meant to be directional, not exact. Your situation may require more details than we can give on a live stream. Therefore, this live stream is for educational purposes only. We haven't had the chance to speak with you one-on-one, so please treat this information as general guidance, not advice to act on. For anything specific to your situation, make sure you talk with a qualified professional. Speaking of qualified professionals, if you have questions about Medicare, give our trusted partner Chapter a call at 440-703-1224 to see if they can help. I will put their number up right here and leave it on the screen for the rest of the live stream. Having said all of that, Jill, why don't you lead the way for us?
All right, great. So Jeff, I'm coming to you live from the gym again.
I see that. I figured I'd stop mentioning that because I think that you're not coming back to your office wherever that is. But
I am, but maybe not till next month.
Okay, well,
so here we are.
You can dual task, pump some iron, and ask some questions at the same time.
Exactly. And I just want to remind all the listeners, please do put your questions into the chat box regarding Social Security, and we will take those questions live. And until some questions start rolling in, we will take some of the emailed questions, starting with Adrian. Adrian had a question. He's asking, I am 65, still working part-time, and do not necessarily need Social Security yet because I could live off retirement savings. Should I delay Social Security and spend retirement assets first, or claim Social Security earlier and preserve investments?
That's the $1 million question. It's one that I get asked a lot, either here or in our Retire Well community. And the answer, like just about anything that doesn't have one answer, is that it depends. There are generally 4 ways to think about Social Security. The traditional way, which is you want to get as much money back as you put in over the years and even more. And so you want to use what's called the break-even analysis. Now, the break-even analysis was put up on the Social Security website maybe 50 years ago, but it was taken down about 15 years ago. And the reason is that the break-even analysis assumes that you can tell what your departure date is. And if anybody knows that for sure, let me know how you figured it out, because I still haven't figured it out. And so people guess. They say, I am relatively healthy. My family has longevity. I live in a safe neighborhood. I don't drive very fast. I don't know, whatever the risk factors are in your life. And therefore, I think I'm probably going to live past the break-even point. And so someone who looks at that math, they'll wait if it's based just on the number. Conversely, if someone is unhealthy, they've lived a difficult life, they've lived a hard life, or they've lived a fast life, they don't have longevity in their family, they might want to take Social Security early if they want to maximize every dollar, because they don't know what the future holds like anybody else, but the odds are against them. Now, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is simply, do you want to enjoy the beginning of your retirement years and want to spend more money than you normally would? Maybe you would decide to take Social Security early. Or maybe you want to enjoy the back half of your retirement years and you want to feel secure about things like long-term care. And therefore, you take Social Security late. Some people just need the money, and the day that they stop working is the day that they apply for Social Security. It's it's a reason. It's even a good reason. It's not my favorite reason, I'll be candid, but it is a good reason for some people. And then there are others that just know that something's going to happen soon and they're planning around it. Maybe they have a big inheritance and it's coming in the next 6 months. And so they don't really care. So it depends on your specific situation, to be fair. I have a course called Social Security Simplified, and we have a lot of people now from both the viewers on the live stream and just general viewers who've stumbled across it in life. And we use a calibration system. We ask 25 questions, and that helps the participant get closer to understand the answer to that question, because it's a question only you can answer for yourself. There are financial planners which will plug in your information in the software, and they will solve for the first option, which is how do you get the most dollars back? But that might not be the right decision for you. So think about how to frame it and use that as your guide.
All right, great. And I am putting into the chat box the link if you are interested in checking out Jeff's course called Social Security Simplified. That you can just go to holyschmidt.com/social security and input a coupon code, which is 60 off. OFF is all caps, so that you can get $60 off from attending the show. All right. Michelle is asking, I will be 65 in November. I'll be working until 70, so I intend to wait to draw Social Security at that time. However, I heard that I should apply for Social Security at 68, but not start drawing until 70.
I've never heard that before. You can't apply for Social Security 2 years before you start Social Security. The maximum you can apply before you start receiving Social Security is 4 months. Now, there's been a lot of turmoil at the SSA in terms of reduced headcount, so you might want to take the entire 4 months. I haven't heard of anybody running late if they decided to do it in 3 or 2. I haven't heard of anybody who actually got pushed back because they were reducing staff, but 2 years that's not even available. So 4 months is the maximum you can, the earliest possible point you can apply for Social Security.
All right. Jeffrey Hines is asking, do you think Social Security benefits will be reduced in the future? Not wanting to be fearful, also not wanting to miss out on possible benefits.
Yeah, this question comes up a lot. And the big caveat is that nobody knows what the future will bring. And there's a lot of fear in the system about this. I can tell you, I'm sure that people on this live stream think more about the infamous 2032 date than your politicians. And the reason is because the way that, and it's not a slight on politicians at all. It's just that politicians don't have the same horizon that other people do. They have a 4-year horizon or a 6-year horizon. They got to get a lot done in that period of time, or they won't get reelected. Since we are not really in the 6-year horizon, which is the max. It's the Senate. It's the maximum you can actually worry about as a senator. You're not going to see resolution on this, I don't think, until the next Congress, the next presidency probably. And so, but back to your question, I want you to picture this. It's 2032. You've got 57 million Americans, or maybe 60 by then, that are receiving Social Security. And all of a sudden their benefits get cut by 28%. What happens next? Well, it's not pretty. It's a cascade effect. You have parents calling their kids up saying, I'm moving back home. You've got people that are now unable to feed themselves. It's a horrible situation. My view, and it's a pretty educated view, is that what is very likely to happen is it's going to look like it's going to look a lot like 1983. In 1983, we were 2 months away. The country was 2 months away from this same exact issue, and that's the trust starts to run out of money. Not insolvent. There's never been a discussion about the trust being insolvent. That's not on the table. But running out of money, and if you run out of money, then you just have basically money in and money out. Somebody funds next month's Social Security payments with this month's Social Security contributions from the workforce. We were 2 months away, 2 months of surplus left in the trust. There was a Congress that was locked. It was the typical left and right didn't like each other very much, and they wouldn't agree to anything because each one would make the other look bad. But then seven people, basically a bipartisan committee, got together and they solved it. And the way they solved it is they raised the rate, the FICA rate, or the Social Security tax rate, from 5.4% to 6.2%. That solved the funding immediately. And then they wanted to build surplus. And so they said, okay, it's 1983. We want to raise the full retirement age from 65 to 67. But if we do it right now, you've got a bunch of people who are 64 who aren't going to be too happy. So we're going to announce it today. And in the year 2000, we're going to start raising it by 1 month a year starting in 2000. So anybody who's retiring in, say, the next 17 years, you're good. So it's still 65. And that's exactly what happened. We got to age 67. Really, actually, that starts next year. So the fact of the matter is, I think it's unlikely. I think what's more likely is that there will be a nudge up in Social Security tax. Maybe there will be a donut where there's a certain amount of earnings, then and then above that amount, there's no additional tax, and above that amount, there's more tax. There are a lot of solutions, but I think it's really unlikely, and neither side is talking about this, that Social Security cuts are the likely outcome. Because going back to my original point when I started this, and I know we got a lot of questions, sorry, gang, but I want to make sure that you're crystal clear in your head about this. If a politician decides to vote or there's no action around Social Security, they won't be in their seat in the following cycle. And since both Republicans and Democrats have said protecting Social Security is sacrosanct, I think it's unlikely.
All right. Mark is asking, my wife receives a pension from work where she never paid into Social Security or Medicare taxes. Once I begin collecting Social Security, can she receive a spousal benefit from my record?
So what Mark's referring to is something called the government pension offset. And there are certain circumstances where you don't contribute to Social Security because there's a different mechanism. Think about teachers, police officers, and the railroad. And that different contribution method it's an exemption from Social Security. So back in the day, the teacher who was contributing to TIAA-CREF's pension plan got a really nice teacher's pension, but there was no contribution to Social Security. And because of that, they couldn't draw Social Security on their own, even if there was no provision in there that said that there was this weird government pension offset. And by the way, what that was is it was a reduction in the amount that you get paid if you did contribute to Social Security. And along the same lines, there was the GPO, which said that the spousal benefit is going to be reduced. And it was a weird formula. I could probably dig it up and give it to you, but nobody should really worry about it anymore because it doesn't exist. And so a few years ago, that was eliminated. The government pension offset and the windfall elimination provision were eliminated. And so now the spousal benefit, which would have been a haircut or worse, is now in full force. So the answer to your question, Mark, is that your spouse is entitled to a full spousal benefit. And so I would focus in on seeing what that looks like. It should be on your Social Security statement. It should be on her. If you go to ssa.gov, she should have that available to her. And you should be able to eyeball it basically by looking at what yours is and then dividing it by 2 and assume that that's what she'll get when she reaches full retirement age.
All right, great. Let's move to Jody's question. If I stop working at 62, but wait until 65 or 67 to claim Social Security, how do those 0 income years affect my future benefit?
So I had fun one day. We try to publish videos that I'm accused of getting very technical. And if I was left to my own devices, I would pick one tiny little aspect of Social Security law and I could do an hour video on it, and we'd get exactly 0 views, or maybe 1, and then they click off after 5 minutes. So you have to be very careful when I start answering these questions. But one of the videos I did, which was supremely successful, was that I said, let's assume 2 different 5-year scenarios. Let's assume you're 62 and you claim Social Security early, not 67. So you claim it 5 years earlier than full retirement age, 67. That's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is, let's assume that you only have 5 years. You take 5 years off of your earnings history and you only have 30 years instead of 35. What would that do to the Social Security payment? And in scenario 1, where you take it at 62 instead of 67, it cut your payment by 30%. In scenario 2, where you only had 30 years instead of 35, I believe the number was, it cut it by 19%. So the answer is you lose less by having 5 years less of earnings history than you do of 5 years less of claiming time. But it's your 35 best years. So if you still had 35 years and they were all great 35 years, and your next 5 years would have been the same, well, you would come out exactly in the same spot. So think about what I just said and assume that if 19% represents 30 years instead of 35, that it's probably going to be better than that. Now, your specific situation is going to depend on your earnings history. It always does. But you can tell very quickly by looking at your Social Security statement what your full retirement age benefit would look like if you continue to earn what you're earning now. And then you can back into a reasonable estimate just based on the fact that you know what your earnings history looks like.
All right, Ryan Shetler is asking, I'm already retired at 57 with government supplemental plus pension. Plan is to wait till 67 to collect. Using IRA to bridge gap from 62 to 67. Do you think that would be best and most advantageous?
It's sort of like the first question, I suppose, and that is that the first question was, I think the span wasn't 10 years, it was 5 or 6. I think it depends. I think it depends on one, you're taking 2 different types of risk. If you're going to use your IRA to fund from 57 to 67, you're taking market risk, and you're assuming that something bad isn't going to happen to the markets. And I'm talking about, think about 2008, the global financial crisis, when mortgages and Wall Street and everything was just falling apart, and it was bad for 5 years. Think about 2000 to 2005 when the dot-com bubble popped, 2002 to 2005, maybe it was 2007, excuse me. That didn't really recover fully until it popped again. So the thing to worry about when you use your IRA to fund an early retirement, especially to max out your Social Security payment, is that the market has to be at your back when it comes to the market. No, usually it is, but there's something called sequence of return risk, and that That basically means that if you took two people and they average, and I'm just going to pick a number, an 8% return, and neither one touched their portfolio, that portfolio is going to go through ups and downs. It's going to have some negative years. It's going to have some positive years. And at the end of a certain period of time, they're going to end up in the same exact spot if they had the same return, if they never touched their portfolio. 30 years, somebody starts in 1960, and they retire in 1990, and they have an average 8% return, but they have a lot of dips along the way. As long as they don't touch it, the guy who, or the woman who started in 1980 and retired in 2010, who has the same average return but different scenarios, they're going to have the same exact dollar amount. Where it becomes a problem, though, is when you're contributing and when you're taking money out. If you take your money out from 57 to 67, you'll be fine with sequence of return risk as long as the markets are performing. But the last thing you want is to start going to retirement and have the markets drop for the next 5 years, because you're going to be selling your assets at a greater and greater discount. There's no way to tell this. It's unfortunate. Nobody can tell the future. If I could, I'd be a hedge fund manager. So would everybody else on this call, I would imagine. But it's something to pay attention to. So it's two different types of risks. Social Security is a stabilizing force, and it's there in good times and in bad. And so you need to balance the two. You need to make, I would never put all my eggs in one basket. Maybe a hybrid approach. Maybe you work until 62. I don't know. If you can retire at 57 because you made so much money that's a real option for you, well then congratulations. That's wonderful, actually. That's wonderful.
All right, Chris, I'm seeing that you have put two things into the chat box, but I'm not seeing a question. If you have a question, please do put it in, unless you're just responding to someone else in here, which we of course appreciate. Lots of people talk to each other in the chat box. All right, great. So let's move on to Anna's question. I'm 59 and a half, and my husband is 10 years older than me. He's currently collecting Social Security and retired at his full retirement age. I work full-time, 67. If he were to pass away, will I receive any of his Social Security?
So you're 59. He sounds like, and I'm just going to use today's numbers for full retirement age. It sounds like he retired or he started collecting Social Security at about age 67. It depends on his income versus yours. If his income was higher than yours, then you would, as long as, in fact, you have an interesting option, which we'll talk about in a second. If his income is lower than yours, then you probably wouldn't if you wait until your own full retirement age to collect, because the survivor benefit goes to the survivor. But if their own benefit is higher, then the only reason you would take the survivor benefit, and this is the option, is because this is the only benefit where you can take one and switch to the other without a penalty. If you're talking about the spousal benefit, if you took your own Social Security payment and then later switched to a spousal benefit, there's a penalty because you started drawing early. But with the survivor benefit, you have the option to take your Social Security payment and then switch to the survivor benefit, or vice versa. So if he was making more than you and you start off on your own and you want to switch to the survivor benefit later, you'll probably end up ahead.
Okay, great. Let's take a question from email. It's a two-part question from Tim. How does Social Security calculate spousal benefits when the lower earner files first on their own record, earns delayed retirement credits, and later becomes dual entitled to a spousal benefit?
So those are two or three different things that are kind of put together in one concept. The first is you've got two people. You've got the spouse and you've got the primary insured. The primary insured files for Social Security. If they file early, then the spouse has the spousal benefit available to them. The spouse can't claim the spousal benefit until the primary insured files. The primary insured needs to go first. But most people, or a lot of people, are under the misconception that the spouse can only get 50% of what the primary insured is receiving, even if they filed early. That's not the case. The spouse is entitled to 50% of the full primary insurance amount, regardless of when the primary insured, the person who's working, filed. But that full 50% is discounted if they file before their own spousal full retirement age. So assume that full retirement age is 67 for both of you. If you claim it at age 63 or 64, you're going to have a haircut of the full primary insurance amount. By the way, this may sound complicated, but I do have a one-pager. It's a cheat sheet here, and this has 3 columns. It has the percentage of primary benefit at different ages when you file, the spousal benefit, and the survivor benefit. And these are all based on the filing age of the person receiving the benefit. So either the primary insured, the spouse, or the survivor, because there's a haircut if you take your benefit early. If you want a copy of this sheet, you can go to my website, holyschmidt.com/quick guide. This is a Social Security quick guide. And it will give you a snapshot of really useful things. You'll also get added to our list, and you'll get tips, tricks, and other things from us about 3 times a week. Nothing intrusive. It's actually just really good stuff that we want to send to you. But the address is holyschmidt.com/quick guide, and Joe will put that in the chat box when the time is right.
Yes, I just put that in actually right now as you were talking. I put that in for anyone.
I guess the time is right. So there you go.
Time is perfect. All right, great. So Maria is asking, is HSA and FSA the same? I'm planning to apply for Medicare next year, and I know that I need to stop contributing at least 6 months early.
Yep. So this is a Medicare question, but I'll go ahead and take it. The health savings account is a wonderful account. It is a phenomenal account because under the right circumstances, you can use it 2 different ways. The way that most people should use it is as a medical funding account. And if you do that with most medical expenses, you are going to be able to pay for your medical expenses with pre-tax income. Let me explain what I'm talking about. You contribute $100 to an HSA account when you're 30. Over the years, that $100 grows and grows and grows at 8%. By the time you're 80, you need some long-term care. Well, now you have that $100, which has grown into $5,000, let's say. You can take it out. You put it into the HSA account with pre-tax dollars, like a 401k contribution. It grew at 8% a year, and that 8% was never taxed. And you take it out without paying taxes on it because you're using it to pay for long-term care. You put it in today, you take it out at a distant point in the future, like a 401k. It's a wonderful instrument. The additional benefit is that once you reach, I think it's 65, you can actually use it like an IRA. You can take the money out, use it for your retirement savings or your retirement expenses, and just pay taxes on it on the way out. An FSA is different. An FSA is what you use with your employer, and it's the use it or lose it. So you might put in $2,000 a year, and with that $2,000 a year, you pay for things like your optical or your dental or your train pass, whatever the case may be. But you have to use that by the end of the period, otherwise you lose it. HSA carries on forever. There are some rules around HSA when you need to discontinue contributing to your HSA account, and that is 6 months before you file for Medicare, but that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about here.
All right. Tim had a second question, which was if someone files early for their own reduced retirement benefit and later becomes eligible for a spousal benefit, is the spousal reduction based on the age they first claimed retirement or the age they became entitled to the spousal benefit?
It's both. So imagine this. This is the example I like to use. Let's say that you have your own benefit, and your own benefit is $1,000 a month at full retirement age. So you wait until full retirement age, your benefit is $1,000 a month. The spousal benefit is $1,500 a month at full retirement age. Both of those are reduced, and you can see the reduction right here on this sheet if you claim early. But what happens if you file for your own benefit and your partner hasn't filed for their benefit, so you can't claim the spousal benefit? So let's say you filed at age 62 and your benefit would have been $1,000 a month at full retirement age. Well, at age 62, it's reduced to 70%. It's right here on the sheet. So you get $700 a month. You are down $300. Fast forward, it's now 5 years later, and your spouse files, and now you're entitled to the spousal benefit, that $1,500 a month. But because you started taking your own benefit early, and your own benefit was haircut by $300, that same $300 more or less comes off of the spousal benefit. So instead of getting $1,500 a month, you get $1,200 a month. So the answer is your benefit portion is reduced, and that comes off of the spousal benefit.
All right. Tony has an interesting question. He's curious about how to become a Social Security certified advisor. And I know, Jeff, that your experience is including.
Yep. So I'm a registered Social Security analyst, and you can just look up RSSA online, and it's a wonderful program. It's a rigorous program. I had an advantage because I'm also a CPA, and I spent 25 years working in the financial services industry and on Wall Street. But I know a lot of people who've passed the course. Some of my closest friends who are YouTubers and they're their own influencers have taken the course, and you probably know a few of them. But it's a rigorous program. It takes a lot of work. But if you want to take the certification, the RSSA is a good one. It's a good designation. There are several out there. I would just spend some time researching what you want to focus in on. If you're doing financial planning, RSSA is a good one. If you want to do just general advice because you want to, if you want to advise people alongside some other government related programs, maybe you want to be in some form of social work. There are other programs that are better. But straight down the line, financial planning, the RSSA designation is probably one of the ones you want to consider.
All right, great. Tony Monero is asking, I'm deferring to 70 to max spousal survivor after reaching full retirement age. Wife has started benefits on her PIA, but if I die before 70, is her spousal survivor based on my PIA at my death higher than my FRA?
Okay, so I know what the question is, but I have a question for the group. What was the name of the character on Saturday Night Fever? The dancer. It's Tony something, but I forgot what his last name was.
I think it's Monero.
Is it Monero? Monero?
It is.
Tony, is that your real name or is that your stage name? Is that your YouTube name? I just got to know, because if it's your YouTube name, well done. If it's your real name, even more well done. But I think that the guy's name on Saturday Night Fever was Tony Monero.
It could have been Monero.
Monero. Okay.
And someone just put into the chat box, Wes Moffat put in, "Are you staying alive?"
It's funny. Anyway, sorry. Read the question to me one more time because I had too much fun with that, so I gotta get back into back into this.
Okay. I'm deferring to 70 to max spousal survivor after reaching full retirement age. Wife has started benefits on her PIA. But if I die before 70, is her spousal survivor based on my PIA at my death higher than my full retirement age?
So if you don't claim Social Security, it is the greater of your full retirement age, even if you're 62 or 63 or 64. Let's assume your full retirement age is age 67. If you pass before age 67, they give you the benefit of the doubt and they say, he would have filed at 67, so we're going to give that as the base for the spouse. However, if you decide to wait past 67, then they say, let's give it to the spouse on his date of death. So let's assume that let's say it's 68 and a half or 69. That is the date that they calculate what you would have received, and that becomes the basis for your spouse. That again is haircut by the age of your spouse when they file for the survivor benefit. If they're at full retirement age, they get 100% of that number. If it's less than full retirement age, then it gets reduced. Again, it's all on this one pager right here. Nice little column right here, totally free. holyschmidt.com/quick guide.
Well, so the verdict is in. John Travolta's character was named Tony Manero, and our
I knew it.
has
I knew
the
it.
same spelling. He was born Anthony Manero and goes by Tony.
All right.
Great.
Now I just need a white suit and a black shirt. That was the thing, right? With the white suit and the black shirt, and he did the thing on the dance floor. Sorry, I'm having too much fun tonight. All right, let's get back to the questions. Let's get back to Social Security. Otherwise, no one's coming back. They're not going to come back to the live stream anymore if I'm doing Tony Monero moves on the video.
Okay. Cordero's asking, spouse is 70 and claims Social Security, earning DRC. I am the primary earner and currently 65 and will file at 67. How will my spouse total benefit be calculated when she is 72, when she is dual eligible?
So dual entitlement, it's a weird thing because when you see, and this is the only way to do videos, by the way, because people get really confused when you start talking about what if this and then that. But dual entitlement creates a problem. Let's say that I'm going to pick two industries where I know people probably make a lot of money if they're good. Let's say that you have a husband and wife, they're both lawyers, and they both earn a lot of money. And one is, let's say that their benefit is big. Let's say it's $2,800 a month. That'd put them in about the 85th percentile. And the other was $2,900 a month. The dual entitlement means that when you file for your Social Security payment, if you have your own earnings and you're entitled to a spousal benefit, the SSA will give you the larger of the two, and you're done. If you qualify for both, the only way you qualify for both is if your partner has filed for their own benefit, which unlocks the spousal benefit. But assuming that that's happened, you get the one benefit, you get the larger of the two, dual entitlement. And it is one of the most confusing things in Social Security because the caveat to all of this is you only are entitled to dual entitlement if your partner's already filed for Social Security, because there's no spousal benefit until they file. So with dual entitlement, you get the larger of the two, and if it is truly dual entitlement, and then there's no recalculation later because you file for one and you will have deemed to have filed for both.
All right. KG is asking, if I begin taking Social Security at age 70, but continue working part-time and investing, what are the tax and Medicare implications?
So you take Social Security at age 70 and you invest it. Well, first, at age 70, there isn't an option for you to continue to withhold taking Social Security. There isn't a scenario that I can think of where you're better off waiting beyond 70. Actually, I can think of one, and that is if you're planning on winning the lottery at some point in the future over and over and over again, then you can raise your lifetime earnings, which is the basis for your Social Security payment. But for us mere mortals out here at age 70, that's the last point where you can claim Social Security and get a real benefit from it. So you want to claim it at age 70. The problem becomes what happens to your taxes. Now, these live streams generally have somewhere between 5 and 10,000 people who watch them or eventually watch them. And I can tell you that there are 5 to 10,000 different tax situations. No two tax situations are alike. There are some that are similar, but no two are alike. One thing is certain, though, and that is your tax on Social Security is always calculated the same way. It's with what's called provisional income. And provisional income is 1/2 of your Social Security payment plus your adjusted gross income plus your interest-free income, muni bonds basically for most people, or a muni bond fund if you have a fund. You add that all up, and if it's over a certain amount, then you may pay tax on Social Security. And the more the time has gone by, the more likely it is that you'll pay tax on Social Security, because these thresholds were put in place in the 80s and they haven't changed since. And let me tell you what they are, because for a lot of people, their provisional income, half their Social Security, plus adjusted gross earnings, which includes things like dividends and interest and pensions and annuities, things like that, will blow right through these numbers. If you're single and all of that total, the provisional income total is over 25,000, but less than 34,000, up to 50% of your Social Security payment may be taxable. Now, the reason I use maybe is because you haven't applied any deductions to this yet. And once you start applying tax deductions, that tax on Social Security disappears pretty quickly. Above 34,000, anything above that may be taxable. 85% of that may be taxable. That's not the tax. It's the amount that may be taxable. And there's a huge distinction here, because people walk away, no matter how many times they say may be taxable, thinking, oh my goodness, I have to pay 85% tax on my Social Security payment. There's no scenario where you're paying 85% tax on your Social Security payment. In fact, there isn't an 85% tax bracket in the US anymore. And so may be taxable. If you're married, the threshold is above 32,000, up to 50% may be taxable. Beyond 32,000, below 32,000, nothing. And beyond 44,000, anything above that may be taxable at 85%. And just for completeness, because I want to make sure that everybody understands what the real issue here is, these have not been adjusted since they were put in place. So when they were originally put in place, going back to my original point on, we're going to do some things to make sure that the trust doesn't run out of money, and we've got 2 months left. That was in 1983. This was one of the things that they put in place, which is we're going to start taxing Social Security. Back in 1983, those were sensible numbers. 2026, not so sensible. So that's the answer to your question. Those are the thresholds. You could be paying tax on Social Security if your provisional income exceeds these numbers, but your deductions will probably offset a lot of it, particularly with the new $6,000 per person, 65 plus tax deduction, which a lot of people qualify for. That actually pushes, unless you earn a lot of money, it phases out. But assuming you don't earn a lot of money, that pushes most people into a zero tax, or pretty close to a zero tax bracket.
All right. DF Spence is asking, started Social Security in October 23. employed in 2024 that replaced one earnings year. In April 2025, I got a bump in my benefits check. Repeated in 25, but no bump letter yet in 26. When does Social Security send a bump letter?
So I think what you're saying, because there are two types of bumps that you get. Bump number one is just your cost of living adjustment. That happens the first paycheck in January. And it was 2.8% last year. That was the inflation last year. So your Social Security this year should have gone up by 2.8%. But also, if you're continuing to earn money, your Social Security payment is recalculated. Now, what I'm worried about here is that you've earned enough to recalculate your Social Security to a higher level, but you're actually receiving Social Security and you've exceeded the earnings thresholds. So you should check out and see if you're over the earnings thresholds. And if you are, then shoot me an email at livestream@holyschmidt.com. Give me the details and I'll tell you what to do next. But that's the only answer I have because I don't know what your earnings are at the moment.
Okay. Belugafied is asking, I am 58 and a surviving spouse. My wife passed late 2024. I filed paperwork with SSA about her death. Does SSA automatically send info about the amount of the benefit to which I will be entitled?
Go to your socials, go to ssa.gov and sign on to your page, and that information should be available there. If it's not, then call the Social Security Administration and talk to them about it. This isn't something that it should happen automatically, but it doesn't. You need to notify them, and then somebody somewhere needs to push a button. One of the things I love about the Social Security Administration is that the people that work there are genuinely good people. One of the things I don't like about it so much is that their computer equipment is from 20 years ago. And so you have good people trying to do the right thing using equipment from the early 2000s a lot of times. And they'll replace it slowly. So you're not going to lose it. Nothing's going to be taken away from you, but you do need to just remind folks that's something that needs to be dealt with. And when you talk, I've met quite a few people from the SSA. I've never met one that was not someone I would enjoy having a conversation with. They're all really nice people. So give them a call and talk to them, and they'll straighten it out. If it's not on my Social Security, ssa.gov.
Okay. David is asking, how does Social Security planning change when the younger spouse is the higher earner?
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, it's a lot harder when the younger spouse is the higher earner. And let me give you an example. Let's say that you have one spouse, she's 59. She earns $200,000 a year. And you have another spouse and he's 69 and he earns $50,000 a year. Her benefit is going to be a lot higher than his benefit. It's not going to be 4 times higher because of something called bend points, but it's going to be a lot higher. And his spousal benefit, more than likely, is going to be far more than he would have with a $50,000 a year income. But he can't get the spousal benefit until his partner qualifies and files for Social Security, because the spousal benefit, the activation that what unlocks the spousal benefit, is the primary insured filing for his or her own benefit. If she's 59, she can't even file for her benefit until she's 62, which would make him 72. And she may want to wait until she's 70, which would make him 80. It's one of those things that I'm personally very frustrated with. I think it's wrong. I think that it wasn't designed well, because maybe they thought people were the same age when they got married, when they put the rules together, but that's rarely the case. So if the younger spouse is the higher earner, then you're going to be faced with that situation. The good news, I suppose, is that the older spouse, if they have their own benefit and they file early, the haircut on the spousal benefit is going to be less because the primary insurance from the lower earning spouse is a small portion or smaller portion of the spousal benefit. But I did a whole video on this, and just look up dual entitlement, or two spouse incomes on my page, my YouTube page, and you'll see the video, and it'll show two people, heads popping up and smiling. They always smile. You can't get people to click unless they smile. Although I've been told I don't smile enough on my thumbnails, but be that as it may, this one you'll have two happy spouses smiling. Look for that, and this will take you deep into the math on this issue.
All right. Cutting Tool Designer is asking, if I retire at 65, start taking distributions from my 401k equivalent to $1,000 per month, how does that affect my RMD at 72? Is there a calculation to determine the RMD at 72? Would be if I don't.
So RMD stands for required minimum distribution, and it isn't really Social Security, but I'll go ahead and answer this one. Your RMD basically is, and we have a lot of videos and Roth conversions on this channel, which is why the questions probably come up. Your RMD is the amount that you have to take at a certain age. I'll give you a statistical fact. It's a weird fact, and I don't fully trust the number, but I trust the source, so it must be true. JP Morgan did a study, and they said that 85% of the people who reach age 72, 73, or 75, depending on your age, I suppose, when you file for or when you retire or when you were born, 85% have not taken a single dollar from their 401k. Now, a couple of caveats for this. You got to understand the clientele of JP Morgan. It's JP Morgan. That's like the clientele of Goldman Sachs. It's not the same clientele as, and this is not a slight because I don't have an account at JP Morgan, but it's not the same clientele as, say, pick an American bank, Wells Fargo. Wonderful people who have their savings there. So that group is going to be skewed to more wealthy. But if 85% of the people haven't even begun taking anything from their 401k when they reach the required minimum distribution age, they got a huge tax problem. And today, the number, I believe, is you have to take 1/26th of your balance out by the end of the year at age 73. If you got a lot of money in that account and you're trying to save it for someone else, well, maybe your kids, more than likely, or your favorite charity. Well, if it's your favorite charity, there are other ways to get around that. But let's assume it's your kids. You got a big tax problem because you can't save the money and then give it to them. You have to take 1/26th out. So the answer to your question is your $1,000 a month may be sufficient so that you don't have a big amount at age 73, or maybe it isn't. It depends on how much is in your 401k or your IRA.
All right. Wes Moffitt is asking, I'm 64. If I do Roth conversions until 75, is it better to start taking Social Security at 70? Or would it be the same if I took Social Security at 67?
This is a complicated question. And I guess we're talking about Roth conversions tonight. So let's just load them up in the chat box. This is a complicated question because Roth conversions assume two things. They assume that you are going to be taxed less today than you will be in the future. And so by definition, the minute you take money out of your 401k or your IRA, your tax rate potentially goes up. You start to fill what are called buckets in these different tiers of tax brackets. And so when you start taking money out to do your Roth conversion, you have to really monitor those buckets because, and I'm just going to pick an absurd number. Let's just say that you wanted to do, let's say that you have a lot of money. You're one of the JP Morgan clients. You got $500,000 that you want to convert to a Roth. And you have two choices. Choice one is to do $100,000 a year for 5 years, or $500,000. Choice two is do $500,000 all at one time. Under most scenarios, you're going to be better off doing $100,000 a year for 5 years because you will keep your tax bracket lower and pay less tax on that. But if you have additional income, then you really need to get either a good financial planner or good financial planning software. By the way, if you do want good financial planning software, we have a wonderful affiliate, and you'll see me talk about it a lot on the channel. It's the personal financial planning software that I personally use. It's called Bolden, and they have a great Roth conversion feature. If you're interested in trying it for 2 weeks free, you'll have to write this down because I wasn't really prepared to talk about Roth conversions. Or maybe, Jill, you can type this in as we're talking. But go to go.bolden, BOLDIN.com/Schmidt, SCHMIDT, and you can get 2 weeks free from Bolden. And then after that, it's $12 a month paid annually. You can try 2 weeks free. It's a full feature software. I use it, and I really believe in it. I wouldn't, we get approached conservatively 25 times a month by people that want us to represent them on this channel. And we have 3 affiliates. We have Chapter, which we talked about. We have Bolden. We have one other one. And so if I'm using it and I'm talking about it, I think it's that good. But check it out for yourself. Go.bolden.com/Schmidt to get the 2 weeks free.
All right. Let's take Jeffrey Hines' question. Does delayed Social Security benefit work as an advantage for doing Roth conversions?
Yes, it could, because remember how we talked about Social Security can be taxable. If you're trying to, the lower your tax bracket, the better a Roth conversion becomes. And so you do 2 things simultaneously. You increase your future Social Security payment and you lower your tax bracket today. And that actually is pretty powerful. It's a good question. It's an astute question. And so it could because you're potentially lowering your tax bracket today and growing your Social Security payment in the future, which a lot of people would consider a good thing anyway.
All right. Tony Monero has a question about
that name.
Does Jeff still have his YT on drawing IRA while deferring to 70 for DRC? I couldn't find it on the website anymore. It was a spreadsheet showing break even on DRC versus IRA forfeited return. I
do. To be candid, I did that video about 5 years ago, and I'll have to locate the web address. It's on holyschmidt.com, and it's there, but I'll have to look it up and I'll put it in the description tomorrow once I find it. Because when I did that video, you remember how I told everybody, if you give me one little point in the tax code or in Social Security or Roth conversions, whatever, I will go deep on that. I could talk to you for 20 minutes about something tiny because I just love that stuff. I'm kind of a geek. And so I built a spreadsheet which had all sorts of different scenarios, also all sorts of disclaimers too, because you don't really want to give somebody a spreadsheet like that without letting them know that, you can't really use this unless you know exactly what you're doing. I did do it. I know roughly where it is. I'll find the URL and I'll put it in the description below, again with a huge disclaimer to everybody watching this that buyer beware. That's probably the wrong word. User beware, because even one slight change in the scenario changes your potential outcome.
All right, we are approaching the top of the hour. Perhaps we can just throw one more question in. Steve from Bohemia is asking, I started Social Security a few months early, but now want to pause benefits because I'm still working and worried about future IRMA charges. Can I stop benefits after reaching full retirement age?
You can stop benefits after reaching full retirement age, sure. I thought you were going to say that you were under full retirement age. Once you reach full retirement age, you can pause your benefits and let them continue to grow. And this is something most people don't know. There used to be a concept called file and suspend. And basically, you would file for Social Security, let your spouse start the spousal benefit, and immediately suspend your own and let yours continue to grow. And the SSA said, well, that's not really what that was for. So they eliminated that. They didn't eliminate your ability to suspend your own Social Security once you reach full retirement age. And it's a good strategy, particularly if you had some sort of windfall. I talk about inheritances all the time. Maybe you had a big bonus from work, or maybe you had some shares that did really well. I don't know. But oftentimes people reach age 67 and they say, I wish my Social Security payment were a little bit higher. Well, once you reach full retirement age, you have the opportunity to suspend your Social Security payment and let it continue to grow. It's about 8% per year from what it was before. So if you filed at age 62 and you got 70%, let's say you got $70, it was supposed to be $100. When you reach age 67, they'll take that $70 and for every year that you suspended, it increases by 8%. So whatever 8% times 70 is, times 3 years. So you're actually talking about a sensible amount of money, a reasonable amount of money.
All right, great. So we are a little bit over the top of the hour. There's a lot of gratitude coming in. Thanking you for such a great show. Excellent presentation. And we thank all you listeners for being here with us tonight. Jeff, I'll turn it back over to you.
Gang, thanks for switching with us. As I said, I was traveling on Tuesday. I try to make sure that we hit Tuesday when we can. But this it was something very special that I was attending, and I had to be there. And I don't normally talk about my personal life here on the channel, but it was something that was a very special moment for me. And so I had to be there. But we will be back next Tuesday and every Tuesday from that point forward at 7 p.m. So mark your calendars and look for our invitation in your email if you've signed up for our list. And if you haven't signed up for our list, then Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we'll be back. With that, I want to thank Jill for such an excellent job. You can go pump some iron now or whatever it is you're going to do. Maybe run on that treadmill like a gazelle. Not sure, but whatever you have going on behind you, go do that. Gang, I will see you 5 days from today at 7 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. Take care, everyone. And thanks again, Jill.
Thank you.